Facebook. That's all.
Yep. All right. We're ready to go. Hey everyone, welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cockhorse. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing terrific, Todd. It's great to be back here and having a terrific guest with us. Mr. Adam Curry is in the house.
Yes, he
So,
is. And
yeah.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas to you, Adam.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. You're so white when you say that, Rob. I'm in the house. I'm in my house,
Ho, ho,
man.
ho.
You're in your house, and Todd's in his house. No one's in the house. You can't even say that anymore. No one's in the
Oh,
house.
that's right. It's the metaverse now, Adam.
Yes, there you go. Web free.
So, by the way, before we get started, did you see the DM I sent you on Twitter? I got on Newsy and did an interview.
Yeah, I saw
Yes,
that.
I did. Of course.
Yeah, I got the shout out in there in the
Yes,
morning.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You have a clip of it? Play a clip, Todd. You got a clip?
I do. I've got a clip, but I don't have a clip player like you do, so
Oh,
it's not all set.
That was funny. It was funny to see some of the older, people going way back showing up. I saw Ron Bloom.
I know. I couldn't believe
I
it.
know.
I was like, one word, bronzer. That's all I could think. Bronzer.
you know, and Rob and I talked about that on the last show. It's like 99% of the people, 99.9% of the people in the podcasting space says, Ron, who?
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, but I don't want to discount his role, and we shouldn't. Things didn't go as they could have, but we broke a lot of ground, and a lot of that wheel that we invented, and it turned out to be pretty square, is being reinvented before your very eyes. I mean, we have the same damn things. It started with, you're using my content without my permission. Well, that is now called a DMCA takedown. So what has really changed in 18 years, you know?
Yeah.
We broke a lot of ground. We made a lot of mistakes, spent a lot of other people's money, and gave a lot of that to podcasters, by the way.
Yes, you did. I think it was to the tune of what, about 36 million or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, before everything was done, it was over 50. I think over 50.
Beautiful.
Yeah. No, I feel very bad for the investors. It didn't work out. That sucked.
Oh, really?
I do. Yeah, of course I do.
Well, of course, because
Of
if
course.
it would have went successful, you would have had another huge exit. So, it'd have
And
been.
the problem was, we were just ramping up, and then, audio flipped to Twitter, Facebook went wide open, YouTube exploded with their multi-billion-dollar purchase. So podcasting, as you know, was just kind of snowed under for, the next 8, 9, 10 years until Serial came along.
Isn't it funny? Because if you think about the grind we were doing in those years, there was like every 6 months, podcasting is dying. And then podcasting's the new thing. Podcasting's dying. Podcasting's the new thing. It was like they couldn't make up their mind. I haven't seen any podcasts as dying articles maybe I have this year. Who knows? I'm sure there's one or two out there.
Yeah, it's always
now we have to kill podcasting because white supremacists use it. So that's kind of what it's become now.
Well, Todd, it's now kill RSS or kill the download. That's the new theme now. It's not so much kill podcasting as a thing.
They've had their those that have agendas have had their sites on RSS for years. They hate it because
it's open.
Well, this is why this space exists. This audience knows this. We've talked about this 5,000 times. And, Adam, you're the absolute purveyor of that.
I don't think people hate RSS. I think that they're frustrated because they feel that they can do so much better if only pesky RSS wasn't in the way and in the equation. So it's not a hate of RSS. It's a hate of their inability to be any bigger or more powerful than RSS, which is, you just can't. It's so embedded everywhere in the internet, and we'll probably talk about that as we talk about Podcast Index. My view of podcasting and RSS feeds and their use is not universally is not universal for everybody. And I think podcasting can be many things. Doesn't just have to be a show that updates regularly, so RSS is so embedded in my professional life. Just it connects all disparate pieces together, and I ingest in and we spew it back out. It's really a beautiful mechanism. And because I don't have to get anyone's permission or talk to anyone about it, or, I can just publish at will. That's very annoying. There's a lot of research papers and studies and things being reported about, what is this podcasting? We can't deplatform it. We can't take it down, and Google refuses to. And, it's that's very confusing for people who have grown up, unlike us, thinking the internet is a phone and there's these things on the phone that you can do, so they've never seen a command line or really know how any of the stuff we're not teaching in school, basically. the stuff we should be teaching.
Right.
And there's definitely, you see it with Joe on Spotify, the folks that are over there that are, hell bent to have some of his stuff removed or have him removed. And he could be. Now, I don't think Spotify will ever do that. They got too much money wrapped up in him. But I think that that's probably a big frustration, too, is there are people out there that want to silence some voices. And I think, we all know you can say what you want to say. Doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to not get sued for it or be criticized for it. But, it's still a pretty open space now where you can say what you want, and then you can either move along or you can complain about it, I guess.
Well, I am, unlike most, I am very pro-censorship on social media. I'm very pro-censorship on Spotify, very pro-censorship on Apple, Google. I really want more and more censorship. I want regulation from the government on these companies so that no one can enter their space and be like them, because we have the alternatives. They're running. There are millions of people using them, everything from Mastodon to Podcast Index. Even to a degree, Substack, they're somehow kept outside of this. This is a beautiful time in our lives where there's still this, I think, relatively wide open window where we can load Linux on our computers. We can access, IP layer and have services running from, like with Tor, even from our home. We can do these things. Nextcloud is a great alternative to the whole Google suite. We can do all these things. So I want it to be really difficult for people to function within the constraints of the government and in collusion with big tech, because people will just move over to all these other places, and then it gets a lot more fun. So I really want to accelerate that, and I encourage it. And whistleblower Hogan for president. Very well done.
You talk about Mastodon, and probably everyone was like, huh? Mastodon who? Well, why don't you tell them what Mastodon is? I'm running a Mastodon server.
Well, people are going to know what Mastodon is pretty soon, because former President Trump's social network, Truth.social, will be running on Mastodon.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Running completely on Mastodon code. So the hope is, or the question, of course, is, will that large instance federate with the rest of the Fediverse? And I'll explain that. So you can get off the shelf an open source social network package that you can load. And, if you just want to run it for your friends, your family, you can literally put it on a laptop, have it run it at home. It's great fun. If you want to do thousands and thousands of people, it starts to get a lot more complicated pretty quickly, particularly in disk usage mainly, I would say, and bandwidth to a certain degree. But what's cool about it is you can just have your little community, and you can determine your own rules. There's no algorithms, but you can determine who's in, who's out, whatever, permissions. You can be God. You can be Jack Dorsey or the new guy. But you can then turn on federation, which means you can talk to other servers. And then once you follow someone, then, there is an algorithm of sorts that kind of starts to flow the content from these other servers into your server. So you have a separate Fediverse timeline, a local timeline, then, of course, your notifications, and then people who you follow. So you can be following people who are on No Agenda Social or podcastindex.social or mastodon.social or any of these other places from your own little server, and you determine what you see. You determine who's blocked, or you can even do it by an entire server instance, like nothing from Trump.social.
Right.
I'm bullish on this, and I called this a long time ago that Trump would do something like this. And if he does, that will be very interesting. It will, of course, immediately make a big problem because Mastodon open source software is driven by people who really, in their core, hate everything about Donald Trump. But the rules of open source dictate that he can use their software. So when and if Trump.social or Truth.social starts to federate, it'd be very interesting to see what happens. It'll be in the news a lot, and people will know what Mastodon is. That's going to change. That's the big takeaway here. So
if anybody wants to check it out themselves, all they got to do is go over to geeknews.chat and sign up for an account. Adam and Rob, you guys can't see it, but I've got the dashboard up right there. Timeline. I got the federated timeline, local timeline, notifications, and, of course, the home chat, too. So...
yeah, I wanted to kind of extend that conversation over to the podcasting realm to some degree, and just think, we're seeing these big corporations get into podcasting, and these proprietary platforms kind of push into the medium over the last 10 years or so, and I feel that there's pressure kind of pushing on this stuff. But if you think back to the very early days of podcasting, and this is a theme that's kind of come up online, if you've noticed it, Adam, but there was a couple of articles that a couple of us wrote back in 2006 predicting the future of podcasting, and it's now being looked at as kind of like what was being said back there is perfectly applicable to what's happening today, and it definitely has this feeling that things haven't changed as much as I think a lot of people would like to think that the podcasting medium has changed. And are we kind of in this this phase where there's proprietary platforms pushing in, and and you're seeing kind of this push of what started podcasting originally was the non-commercialism and the open nature of it and stuff. So this tension is building. I mean, as you think about what you're doing with your platform, how do you see that kind of playing out here over the next couple of years? The tension from these big companies getting in, but yet the desire to push to stay open.
Well, I have a question before we talk about the tension. When we talk about moving podcasting along further, what exactly are people talking about? What exact, podcasting hasn't grown. Well, it has grown in how many people are listening and producing. So what exactly is the complaint?
Yeah, and that's a terrific question, Adam, because I don't think that it can be articulated in a way that really makes a lot of sense in the historical context. And then also in the
I can answer it.
Yeah,
it's the fact that they control if you can be on or not. That's the entire thing. That's all that it's about. Is like and mea culpa. I never took into account when I really helped Apple establish iTunes as the default on-ramp and gateway to podcasting. I didn't realize what a position they were actually put in. Mm-hmm. And you still, I don't know what the process these days. I haven't submitted my last 3 podcasts to Apple, so I have no idea. I don't know if it still takes a day or 3 days or a week or whatever, how the review process is done. But that, of course, is completely counterintuitive to what podcasting really is about. And the tension you speak of is really within industry players who have not done anything to solidify or to stand out from the crowd by doing something different. And for over a decade, a whole lot of people have been sitting around saying, well, if Apple doesn't do it, then. And then it became if Apple and Spotify doesn't do it, then. And so what Apple and Spotify have done is, they're just taking the content. They don't give a flying fuck about, they don't care about features at all.
You can swear on this share. It's okay.
Yeah, they can always bake those in if they want to. But what the tension is, can I get on? Will it be fair? Will I get kicked off? What are the rules of the road? And what constitutes how I should be doing it? Just all of these things. That's the tension that people are going to lose the control, because that's the difference. And it's not true, of course, because and for sure it's not true since we started Podcast Index, and we have many, many alternative apps for people to use over Apple and Spotify. And what you're going to see is people giving them a reason to try new apps, to use new apps. Now, that is up to the app developers. And we have, I'd say, 3 of the new podcast app, if you want to try one, newpodcastapps.com. 3 of these developers. One has secured funding and is actively marketing now, is using some of that money to market their app. Another one is basically given up his day job and has dedicated himself full time and is really kicking ass. I'm not going to name them just because I think everyone's kicking ass. And then there's a third. What was the third one I was thinking of? Well, anyway, anyone can with some skills can make a podcast app. But to make a podcast app and market it and have it used successfully, it's a business. You got to work at it. It's not something like, here's an app, why aren't people using it? You really got to do something. And because of the nature of Podcast Index and how it regards RSS and RSS feeds, there's plenty more use coming with new interfaces. And I'm thinking music, I'm thinking documentaries, I'm thinking audiobooks, I'm thinking PDFs for all I care. There's a lot of things that are coming in the model that we see shaping up before us. And the least of the problems is money. The least of the problems for people podcasting is money. It's really not a big deal in the realm of podcasting. It's a big deal to industry players, of course. Right. You're providing services. You want to keep your business alive. You want, it's an important service. And if you look at the development of podcasting, the hosting business has always been a beautiful array of disparate companies. It's not all aggregated into one. And funny enough, if someone really wanted to just do it right, they could, I guess, if they threw enough money and people at it. But so, we try to acquire little bits and pieces, and they're fucking themselves. We found out that almost 800,000 of the anchor feeds that are in Podcast Index are not in the Apple index. So they're screwing themselves easily. And we're just sitting there going like, oh, okay, we got it all, if you're looking for it. And again, is that really the most important thing? We still can add a feed manually. So I just don't see the tension other than self-created amongst players who are caught in irons. And to be honest, you two are a little bit in there, and I'm not saying it's not that you wouldn't want to roll out, full interfaces to 2.0 features. I understand very well after 2 years of kind of sitting, in your backyard and observing, like, holy shit, there's a lot that goes into that. And when you screw something up with feeds or someone's podcast, that's when you die, because you just can't get enough support people. So I get it. But that's what has to move ahead. And actually, and then I'll shut up. Something happened today, which could be very important, could be kind of a cool thing. The iHeartRadio, specifically their podcast division, has been sued under the Americans with Disability Act for not providing transcripts to their podcast, which is something I've warned about for years. I knew this was going to happen at some point. I also happen to be somewhat hard of hearing, so I follow the news. Not that, I just crank it up. I'm lucky I can turn up my headphones to 15. I can still hear. But now it's like there's this mad scramble. Oh, what are we going to do? Well, I believe they could completely, anybody could do away with lawsuits if you automatically provide. This is a producer, by the way. Sure, they have their own app, but it's about the production and the publishing of the content. They can provide these transcripts. They can provide them in a way that is compatible with industry standards. And here's a plethora of apps, guaranteed that if any app developer kind of had his head on straight, and I'm going to talk to a few of them, they might make a special hard of hearing version where the transcripts, instead of like captions underneath, could be large, or configure it yourself. This can be done today. And, where are people going to go? Buzzsprout, RSS.com. That's where people are going to go because the features are ready and baked in. That's what I believe. Now, will some companies go, well, okay, we're going to do automatic transcription for every podcast on our platform? All right, fine. That's another way to do it. But I think that comes with so many inherent risks for a corporation to be, transcribing someone else's work, and then, decisions are made upon that, and it's all kinds of. It seems backward to me. Whereas we now have everything in place. There's Ryan at podcastingnext.social. He's working on a service where literally you just publish your feed, your new episode, and the transcript is automatically put in. It's all good to go. I mean, these things are happening at record pace. We just all got to step up and shine because the opportunities are right there in front of us.
One of the things that we did a number of years ago was we partnered up with a company that provides, at least at Blueberry, provides all our podcasters a transcript. Now it's delivered to them because they record their show, they post it, it has to be processed, and they send it back to them. Then the content creator themselves has to decide, what are they going to do with it? They're going to add it to the tag and make sure that it's available. But the problem really is too, even at that level, computer generated transcripts right now they're about an 85 to 90%. But I think something is better than nothing.
I mean, I use it for all of my shows. All of them are transcribed, and I cannot teach Otter.ai that it is John C. Dvorak. It's still John C. Dvorak. But in general, I'm quite happy. I'd say that's more than 80%. I think they're more like 90% on accuracy, 99% on comprehensibility.
Yeah, I think you're right too on that. And there might be a few words that are screwed up, but usually you can stay within the context. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is any company that, and shoot, they can do it with you guys too. You have open text fields, sure, right? So you can jam in and you support the namespace.
Well, we already support the transcript namespace. Yeah.
Well, perfect. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's good to go. All you need to do is start using it and say, okay, I mean, you can do that, or you can go and re-engineer your whole app and go do all that shit for a year. Or, hey, we're compliant. It's working on these apps. The industry is moving ahead. We're a leader. That's what everybody can say. Now, instead they're going to do, oh, don't worry, Amazon can do it. Ugh.
Well, and I think part of it is as well, and I understand where you're coming from, and the new app developers who are supporting some of these new tags, I think they're to be commended. I do we want all the apps to support this stuff? Yes. And the question is, or the challenge is, how do we make it happen? And I think but at this point, sorry to interrupt, it's not an app support problem. Chapters and transcripts are supported almost universally. These are the two out of the gate. Now it's a publishing problem. You guys need to educate. It's got to be in the newsletters, like, hey, ADA lawsuit, let's all work on this. If you have a transcript partner, then, gosh golly, let's integrate it. Let's just get that going, because it's at this point, the lawsuit is against the publisher. The problem is with the publisher, and the publisher is using whatever they use to publish their RSS feed. Right.
It's not supporting something that is out there and can be supported. And by the way, as a hard of hearing person, I get to say, hello, fellow deaf people. We can use a different app. We use screen readers, all kinds of stuff. We can, if it's available, we have to be part of the solution and not, well, it's not on Apple yet, so it's not good enough. No, come on. We all have to work together on this.
At the same time, how do we incentivize? Okay, so I'm going to say that word purposely. How do we incentivize Marco and all these other app developers to get on board and start implementing support for transcripts? Let's just go there.
Okay, all right. Again, we're going back.
It's the chicken or the egg
years,
thing,
right?
I know.
I'll do it again with you. You've got to start pushing it hard. If you push it and the podcasts are publishing it, look, there's no downside. If the app doesn't eat it, the app doesn't eat it. No problem. The upside is Marco can one day wake up and say, okay, I see now we have all the hosts are publishing transcripts, chapters, etc. I can start flipping a few of these things on. It's no longer, you don't get to wait anymore for Marco to do it. I'm sorry, neither of you. Shame on you for even suggesting it.
Well, no, be honest with you. We've been down this road before with app developers with lots of cool things, and the app
goes nowhere.
It goes nowhere. So I agree with you. I agree. I agree in principle.
We have implementations. We have proof. We have proof of work. We have working apps with all of these features.
I agree.
Working now, many for well over a year.
I agree. I went so far as when we were doing subscribe on Android long before Google was on the space. 13 lines of code. All they had to do was cut and paste into a specific part of their app, and it would support the one-click subscribe on Android. And we got about 13 apps to adapt that. But do you know how much hair pulling I got? And I gave them the code just to cut and paste. We made it so simple.
I do, Todd. I do, because we're trying to get all the hosts to implement one line of code for PodPing. And I know how hard it is to get hosting companies to do something.
That's right.
It's funny. I know exactly how hard it is.
So it's, we're not innocent.
We're not. We could talk like this to each other because you said, let's just go there.
That's
there.
Right.
And we respect and love each other. So this is not an angry conversation.
And as I had said this is my perspective. I can go to my team and say, okay, let's put these 10 Podcast 2.0. And we have a list of Podcast 2.0 initiative tags that we're going to implement. But it's one of those. Right. And the thing is, where does it fit in my dev priority? And really, and be honest with you, what I'm looking at now, and it's no secret, is that anything that helps a podcaster grow is my priority, because that's my number one
question.
Sure.
Because I've always wanted to know what this means. Because I hear you guys talk about it all the time. What does it mean when you say you want to help people to grow their podcast?
Yeah, grow their show.
Grow mean, and what is the ultimate goal?
So grow audience.
Yeah, grow audience. That's what it is. That's all. That's always what it means. When I do a call with a podcaster, number one thing: how do I grow my audience? How do I grow my audience?
It's really interesting, because I have changed. My whole outlook has changed on what growth of audience means. The days of you win when you have the most audience, the biggest audience, is really over. It is completely over. Look at what are the Nielsen ratings for Netflix and Amazon and HBO? You're not going to get them because they don't do them.
Right.
And they never will. They may talk about, if they have some record-breaking thing, they'll use it from time to time. But in general, no, because there's no accountability. But that's where everyone's growing, and they're all going there because it's not important how many people are listening or watching, because there's no ads. It's important for them how many people they can keep engaged with great content to keep paying their monthly subscription.
Right.
So we've seen the value for value model. We've seen Patreon models. These are very successful. Growing your show, to me, it means a couple of things, but it's always going to be about the value of the audience that you attract. That's what it's going to be. If you're just growing your show, to me, that means I just want to make money with advertisement. The bigger my show, the more money I'll make. Fine. I think that's a dead-end strategy. I just don't think it's a great way to go anymore. And for television, radio, or podcasts, any of it, this is changing. The audiences are rejecting into the interruptive advertising model. Podcast audiences have long rejected the start with 10 ads, Joe Rogan. We all forwarded through it. We all know we did that.
Click, click.
Just fast forward. Right.
So let's not horse around. For me, for instance, for MoFax, which is it's important to me that we make a certain base because Mo needs to live. More important, I think, for both of us is the responses we get from people, how they're affected by the content and the feedback they provide. No Agenda is well known. We barely do the show. I mean, the producers do everything for us, but we spend an inordinate amount of time sifting through it and going down rabbit holes that they sometimes open up. But there, it's like, what is important? I need to pay the rent. So, and that's an immediate thing. So I don't care if it's 1,000 people helping me pay the rent,
or 10,
or 1 million.
Right.
Doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter. Every single one of them who contributes value is a value to me, and therefore, that's someone who I find important to grow the show.
I do not disagree with you at all in that assessment.
I know you don't, but we got to sometimes break through and tell people again, remind them.
Because I understand what you have accomplished over there. And I'm just, and Robin, I tell people all the time, you want to learn how to get your show beyond the advertising spot and be user supported. You got to listen to the No Agenda show. You just have to. And then come up with your own formula and rinse, wash, and repeat. But
there's some other things, and this is also very important because I listened very carefully to your conversation on the last New Media show about podcasts. How many are active? What's a dead show? And I take some exception to some of the concepts. For me, I mean, I have several properties that exist in RSS form out there that don't update, haven't updated in a long time, but they're 100% valid podcast feeds.
I don't discount that.
I feel that a university professor should be able to do a special lecture series, either recording in the auditorium or doing them at home, throw them up on a feed. It's in the podcast app immediately. So of course he used Podping to get it into Podcast Index. And by the way, we now have a manual ad feed feature. Good to note.
Good.
That will be an interesting lecture for that school semester, and then it may not update after that. But who says that it's not valid for the next semester? For the next class. So these are all valid uses of podcasting to me. You don't necessarily have to have a show.
So maybe you guys need to have an additional metric on that page. Maybe that metric should be valid RSS feed, valid media. And
if it's no valid media, it's not in.
So it gets removed. So it's
already out of there.
Have an episode, right. or you got a JPEG in there, some placeholder.
So everything that's in there now is already self-filtered, so that with the 4,517,108 feeds that you guys are looking at, all of those have an active media link and an active feed.
Well, what do you mean by active?
Okay, meaning I can subscribe to it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you can subscribe to it, and the media is
available.
So it's still available.
But also a lot of, and we went through this on Podcasting 2.0, the podcast, right after you guys published last week. And that was, in fact, we read Rob's email to me requesting this. So Dave Jones gave a 20-minute answer, which to me was top level consultant type explanation, how even they dedupe the feeds. I mean, it's amazing the work that has been done. And here's the cool thing. We don't know everything. We still don't really have a grasp on what is, let's just use the word active or, anything like that. But the entire database is completely available for anyone to download and sift through and chop and slice and dice. And we update it, I think, every week. The whole thing is dumped. You can look at all of this. You can do whatever you want. And to me, it's like a consultant's dream to go through this and really come up with some answers. The only thing we don't publish with it is feed email addresses.
Right. Good for you.
Because we don't want people grabbing that and scamming that out.
So that's to me then, and I haven't listened to the explanation. I'll go back and listen to it. But I kind of assumed by default that was the case. I didn't know. But one thing that I do find interesting, though, is when we're talking about podcasters, I can't compete in the space. Well, we all know the answer to that. That's bull. You can compete in the space, even if there's only 393,000 shows that have updated in the last 60 days. You can compete in the space because if you're new and you're putting content out on a regular basis, it's a little bit different perspective. Now, if I want to go listen to that professor's lecture,
but can I ask you a question?
And it's evergreen. Fantastic.
Why do you have to compete? Who are you competing against? The 300,000 podcasts that have updated? Are you really competing against those?
That's the mind. That's the,
by the way. And I always argue. I said that's not where the competition is.
That's the mindset of the podcaster.
No, that's the mindset of people who are poorly informed.
So inform them.
The 300,000 podcasts that update, not everyone in the world is seeing these podcasts update. You're not, oh my God. I mean, this is not, podcasting does not equal YouTube. There is no algorithm that's going to pop stuff up and I know that this is the dream of the
Oh, it's a
programmatic
dream.
ad
Yes, it is.
insertion people. No, it hasn't happened. No one's building it. No one's going to build it. There's not enough context around the publishing for people to actually do it, in my opinion. So you're competing against noise all over the place. The No Agenda Show sends a newsletter the night before, the afternoon. It's timed around the world, very sophisticated operation, to remind people we're doing a show tomorrow. These are some of the simplest things you can do that will blast you past the entire competition, because most people don't do this. Get a Substack. Remind people the day, the night, whatever your rhythm is, that's when something's coming.
Right.
My number one advice always for anybody who wants to do a podcast is, if you want people to listen at all, your consistency must be there. You need to be consistent with the day, and pretty much within an hour, a couple hours window of when you are publishing. That is the only way. People will forget about you very quickly.
I don't disagree at all in any of what you said.
Yeah, this is a lot of the reason why
competition is all the other noise. It's all the other noise. You're competing against the entire universe. Screensavers. You're competing against everything. People, squirrel, what? I forgot. Oh, just because you'll pop up in a notification on someone's podcast app with the 5,000 other ones I've subscribed to that I don't listen to anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the automatic pruning apps, ladies and gentlemen? Come on, app developers, we can be better. Your competition is something completely different. It was really interesting. I launched a new podcast 2 weeks ago with my wife, with Tina, Curry and the Keeper.
Awesome.
And the only reason we really launched it is, well, I knew that if we could be honest and speak the way we do at home, it would be fun to listen to. I know that. I know that it can be entertaining. We really want to achieve maybe giving some normalcy in weird times for people who have kids, just, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. We also drink wine. Who the hell knows what we're doing? But as an adjacent part to that, 100% podcasting 2.0. So only submitted to Podcast Index. No other way is value for value, but no other way of funding it than through streaming payments. And I got to tell you, the experience of no pre-marketing. We didn't tell anybody we're going to do this. We launched the show, one tweet, and then, have you ever seen the movie Middlemen?
Don't think so.
It's about the two guys who invented or started a company that would process credit card payments for porn companies.
Yeah.
So that it would show up as, American entertainment on your credit card. And these guys strung out on coke and booze in some shitty ass apartment, and they've built this thing and nothing's happening. Then all of a sudden in the middle of the night, you hear every single time a payment is done like that.
Right.
So we have a little pew pew sound on for a boostogrammer when someone starts streaming, and almost right away, and you see that, and the feeling that at that very moment someone's listening. They're not just listening; they're listening, and they like it enough. They're sending us value back in real time right now within 10 minutes of launching this show. That was as exciting to me as the first days of podcasting when it kind of worked and people were like, holy crap, I heard your show. It worked. It came through on my iPod.
And here's what's scary. 99% of the people don't know what the hell you're talking about right now.
That's not scary.
No, I'm saying it's scary. It's sad.
No, it's not sad. This is slow moving. Podcasting is a slow grower. It's always been that way. All it takes is for not just me, but for other people to tell their listening audience, try a new podcast app, and for them to publish with some new features. That's all it takes. And the same with explaining how value for value streaming payments works. It's something that only each podcaster knows how to tell their audiences what to do, or where to start, or what they think is handy, or that kind of stuff. This is not a top-down thing. So I just need to get at the podcasters. Podcasters need to see the advantage and the benefits and the fun, and then they need to go do it.
Oftentimes now I get we get called, Rob probably does too, by new entrants that are going to be adding podcasts to their platform, whatever it may be.
Sure.
And so they always say, how do we get podcasters to talk about us? I says, you got to give them something in return. One, give them some client-side data. Two, and I tell them, go look at the Podcast 2.0 initiative, look at ways that you can help the podcaster. And I'll be honest with you, when you tell them that and they're like, they don't know how, I don't think they're used to being told how they can help. They ask, but I don't think they often listen. So when you tell them what they can do, I'm talking in circles here. Maybe I'm just talking to myself when I'm telling them that. But if you're as a podcaster know that you're going to get paid, if you set up a Lightning node, and if you guys don't know what we're talking about, James Cridlin wrote a good article on Lightning node on Pod News. You can go read it.
Or go to value4value.io, value4value.io. It's a pretty good explainer.
And then tell your listeners to go use an app that supports it. Guess what? If they start, they're going to tell their audience, don't go use Apple Podcasts, don't go use Spotify, go use this app so you can help the show. And you're making a donation just by clicking play.
And basically, it would be the same as saying, okay, I use Overcast. Now I've strapped my Venmo onto my Overcast app, and I've determined that every hour I listen, I'm going to send my favorite podcast $1, and then the Overcast app will be taking 1/60th of a dollar every minute and sending that to your favorite podcaster. That's exactly what we've created, except it's in Bitcoin because you can't do it with Venmo and all these other financial systems. You can't actually do micropayments at any affordable rate. So that's the whole concept. So when you press play, the Bitcoin Venmo is sending directly to the podcaster's Venmo, from Venmo to Venmo. No one's in the middle of that. So you're doing that directly to them. And when you stop, then the payment stops. That's it.
Value4, the number 4, value.io would take you to the page that Adam's referring you to, or we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So it's you guys have already come up with a way to solve a lot of these issues, but you need people like Rob and I to implement. You need more app folks.
I don't need people like you. I already have people like you. I want people like you.
There you go.
I want people like you. And again, completely cognizant of the development time and issues and cost involved completely. But this is where I think podcast service providers are going to differentiate. And all I'm doing is saying, here's a real opportunity on both the publishing and the app side for Americans with disabilities. And the specific disability is hearing.
Right.
So, holy crap. I mean, we already have several apps, including Podverse. Podverse has done an incredible job putting in accessibility features for the blind. So, he's got great screen reader capabilities, has worked with a couple of people who are experts or at least know what they're talking about. So he's really done a good job there. So conversely, here we have a whole bunch of, there's going to be a lot of companies reading this. I know because my wife used to work at Ron McDonald House Charities of Central Texas. She was the chief communications officer, and she saw coming down the pike years ago, oh goodness, we have to annotate every single one of the videos we put on our website, in particular because they're connected to the medical industry. Otherwise, they are at huge risk for a lawsuit. And there have been many, and they've been frivolous, but this one against podcasting, don't step over it. This is a big deal.
I don't think they
can go to everybody now and really start messing with them.
I don't think this is the first one. Wasn't there another one too, Rob? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think that there's been a couple of lawsuits that have come up over the last couple of years in this area, but I think they just don't get a lot of traction as far as people's concern about them.
I think iHeart's the biggest, but I think there was one other that was sued for the same ADA stuff.
All I'm saying is any big publisher who wants to be compliant one way or the other has a real easy out by using a host that supports it, and pointing to apps that support it. I think the opportunity for our app developers is, how do I make something that embiggens the text, or does something special that'll work for people. I have to say, and it's not so much because I have hearing aids that are outstanding and really high tech stuff, but I have problems with a lot of the 5.1 mixes that are done on the streaming apps these days. They're not really optimized for everybody's setup, and so I have a trouble with the middle channel. And but even my wife, who is perfect of hearing, so we flip on closed caption, and how it's done matters. It really matters. The font, the pacing, all that stuff matters quite a lot. So this is a big opportunity for podcasting 2.0 and players in the space. I mean, if I supported transcripts, I'd be like, hey, don't get sued.
But
come to us.
At the same, I'll say one thing and let you go, Rob. One thing about the transcripts, though. Many of the transcripts that are being put out are not in an SRT format. In other words, there's not a time sequencer with the transcript. So in order to have this full implementation where you can have a sequence playback where the words are playing back, you have to have it's basically got to have the second by second tracking on the SRT file.
Yeah, but there are plenty of companies that do that.
Plenty.
I mean, I use Otter.ai, but there's all kinds of Amazon AWS has some stuff set up, but there's services available, and I know that some hosting companies are just offering that as an integration or as an add-on. Personally, I think you've got corporate clients. They're going to come to you, say, hey, Rob, here's our monthly phone call. What you got for me? You say, well, don't get sued. For an extra X, we will get the transcripts for you. They're 2.0 compatible. Anyone who complains, you can say, hey, deaf person, use this app. You're covered. That's a huge business opportunity sitting right there for everybody to jump on. A marketing opportunity, a press release opportunity. This will be in the news because iHeart might be a vocal target. We'll see. And there will be more. This may be just a test case, or they may say, hey, all the Spotify exclusives. They may say that too.
If iHeart writes a check, watch out.
Well, then there's also
if they settle,
movement to write a check for damages.
If they don't go to court and they settle, then watch out.
That'd be a real problem.
Yeah.
So there's also an effort to unionize at iHeart right now too. So I don't know if you guys saw that. So there's that element to it. But I wanted to go back a little bit in time here. But I can mention a little bit about this transcription thing.
Wait, Rob. Tell me about is the unionization important? Because that is interesting. Perhaps I don't want you to step over it if it's relevant to what.
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, it's not relevant to what we were just talking about. It's just more of kind of this movement. I mean, that actually happened with Spotify not that long ago, and that there's organizations. So you can kind of see that labor is kind of consolidating again right now, which is part of a bigger trend that's happening even outside of podcasting. And I know we've talked about on this show how content creators probably need to come together and do something at some point, because if you look at the big picture, a lot of these big listening platforms are kind of using all these podcasters to grow their businesses, right? But there's not a lot of two-way going back and forth on that.
Why should they?
Yeah, exactly. But I wanted to mention about the ADA stuff too. If you actually go read the ADA, the core problem is that the ADA terminology doesn't say anything about digital or podcasting. It doesn't say anything in there about that. Well, and what we're talking about here is closed caption. So we're not really talking about pulling transcripts, though that is generated through this, but it's kind of a little bit of a different conversation.
Here's what the ADA is trying to do, or whoever sued iHeart, is they basically say digital is the equivalent of broadcast.
Well, they're making that stretch, right? But that may not make it in court, is what I'm saying.
Well, let's say it does, and it probably will.
Okay, but
it could.
Let's humanize this for a moment. People need words on the screen.
That's true.
Oh,
They
no,
do.
no, I agree with you, Adam. I'm just
We're
saying
not saying they don't.
right. It's more to do with why I think it doesn't get taken seriously in the podcasting industry.
Well, then podcast industry are dicks because people need words on the screen. It's a very important feature.
It
was
is
one of the first ones that was supported, and I was delighted for my
Right.
personal reasons, which I'd never mentioned this while the development was going on, but I was like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
I kind of dig
It
that.
is-
That's okay.
And I think that it's overdue as well.
Yeah. But
No, I
it's here.
agree. I mean,
The
it
point
is.
It's here. It's
Yeah.
here. It's
Yeah.
here. You can go to several hosts. You can, I think one of them even does the transcription for you and tags it in there. And yeah, it doesn't work on Apple, and it may never. I don't know, but that doesn't matter because you've now served your audience who had trouble hearing it, and now they can use a different app.
They
and
can go somewhere else to get that content if they need to. Right.
So really,
So-
and not to make light of it, if you do that, you cover your 6. Say, yes, we have. We're supported where transcripts are supported within the space.
Of course.
Right.
Of course. I'm just saying for you in particular, Todd, because I know you're an old school business guy.
Yeah.
You talk to your clients and you're not upselling them. You're giving them the truth. And now you have something to give them and you potentially have a solution for them.
Yeah.
So that may change your dev time because I think you can and you should charge for it. Transcriptions aren't free.
No,
free.
really good ones are not. You know,
Well,
you
but
can
no,
do
but
you can
even-
do
even
80%
crappy ones are
solution.
not free.
Yeah, you can do 80% solutions relatively inexpensive, but it's still like $1 an hour. So it's
Sure.
not cheap.
It's not something you should provide for free.
Right.
It's something that producers need to, look, maybe you can bake that into your monthly price when you do
Right.
changes,
Right.
whatever. I mean, all that stuff, you know how to package.
Yep,
I don't have
yep.
to tell you that. But
Yep.
someone's going to have to start pushing it because it's so obvious. iHeart
Well,
is the first one.
yeah.
Who's next? And
Who
there's
is
going to be
next?
some interesting groups. It could be a whole group, who's really the owner, there's all these things. No one wants. The best way to avoid all this hassle is just not to have the hassle in the first place.
That's right.
No one needs
Yeah.
this crap.
The other aspect of this too that needs to be brought into the conversation too is a lot of these big tech companies, Google, Apple, whatever, have plans to pull transcripts from all the shows that are on their platform. I know Pandora was going to do that. I know Spotify had planned to do that. Google, all those folks, and so that may hedge against this issue for them. Is their desire to do
it
that.
Just seems so backward to me. I mean, it makes no sense. They all know, even Google knows there's a cost associated with transcripts. In fact, I think they know better than anybody what that really costs. So
they want to use
those-
it for more than just closed caption
Right.
experiences.
Yeah.
No,
They want to use it
believe me,
for.
I know
for-
what they want it for. Everybody
for
knows
deeper
what they want it
discovery
for.
experiences.
We
Right.
we when the Google team was accessible,
Right.
and when I was talking to Google, they are currently creating a transcript for every podcast episode that they have in their index.
Mhm.
So they
And are they
have
going
those
to make
internally.
that freely available to those very same podcasters?
I
'Cause
would-
I will sue them otherwise.
I would be.
That is my copyright work. You have no right to republish my work
They're
whatsoever.
They're not republishing it. They're using it internally for whatever purpose.
For search, for snippet links,
Okay.
for
That-
all sorts
that's
of
fine.
stuff.
That's fine. They
Yeah.
can do that. They can do that all day long, but they better not be surfacing that as my official transcript.
Or if they do, they give it to you via an interface you can get to privately that no one else can.
Right.
What do you mean?
Well, let's
Or you
say
can turn it off and on. Now,
let's say
granted,
that they made it available in your portal over at Google Podcasts. You could go over there
who?
to you only. If they made it available
Oh.
to you only, would you be cool with that?
What do you mean? Me as the listener?
No, you as the producer. You as a
I would love for them to have a transcription service that they use to market the crap out of people who won't hear an ad on my podcast anyway, but allow me to use it as a
resource,
as a transcript. That sounds like a fair deal.
That
but
sounds
nothing short of that.
I agree.
well, but if the
I still
ADA
wouldn't use them
sues
out of
Google,
principle, I'd
oh,
use other people if I could, but you get the idea.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if the ADA law comes under some sort of lawsuit under Google or Apple or one of those, there may be extreme pressure on those guys to surface that.
I think the pressure the pressure is on the publisher. this lawsuit is not against Google app.
Right.
This
Right.
pressure is
Right.
on the publisher,
particular lawsuit
iHeartRadio.
isn't.
They're the ones that are under pressure for not publishing this. That's where it belongs, and I agree with that.
Because if you think about it, iHeartRadio is more than podcast. It's radio stations, and so they're going to have to do real time, just like they do on television. They're going to have to do real time closed caption, which that's a whole different. Well, that's cheap. Now that's expensive compared to what we're talking about. We're talking about at least being able to, get a transcript and implement it.
Chances are, Todd, they're probably going to use the same system.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure if they're going to push it through, if they're going to push the audio through, they're going to push it through the same system. But we'll see.
But Adam, I wanted to talk about the whole difference between the podcast index catalog of 4.4 million shows and what Apple's putting out there. I know you had mentioned 800,000 of them that are in your catalog aren't in Apple's catalog.
That's just the Acast. That's just 800,000 of the anchor feeds.
Right.
Which is well known is a large amount, but 800,000 of those do not have an Apple ID. So there's because what you're doing is you're not setting it up properly. The comparison was made between now 4.5 million podcasts at podcastindex.org versus 2.2 million at Apple.
That Apple's reporting,
and so right off the bat, now we have a whole, almost like a little team of people, but for sure our big friend, the Swedish Trickler, who scouts the entire internet all day long for RSS feeds that have not been published. And a lot of them belong to media properties in France, for instance, Poland. There's a lot of European entities that just never submitted to the Apple Index. And you know what? People still use RSS feeds in the old school way of subscribing manually. Mm-hmm. So that's an important distinction, that there's many more in the podcast index that do not have an Apple ID associated with them. I don't have the number offhand. But just as a new number, I think it's 760 or 780,000 that are from Anchor do not have an iTunes ID associated.
I believe that Anchor turned off automatic submission, or maybe Apple stopped them from doing automatic submission to them. Right. So at some point within the last 6 months, unless the podcaster went and manually did it himself, he wasn't automatically getting on Apple. So I can see that. And I also can see... Remember, RSS was around a long time before podcasting was. So, if you think of all the uses of RSS and all the uses of the enclosure tag since 2004, there's going to be a lot of content out there that, like you said, has never made it into some podcast directory, like Apple Podcasts.
I think we have a lot of what's valid and what's good out there. I mean, I stand behind what the guys think, that we have a pretty good index.
And here's the beauty, that people can download it and they can look at it.
Yeah,
there's no secrets. It's open.
Yeah, that's been going on for a long time. I mean, the 4 years that I worked at Spreaker, a show could be created on the Spreaker platform and RSS feed generated. But the podcast or the show never submitted to any podcast directories. It was just a live show, but it had an RSS feed associated with it. So there's just a lot of people that don't understand how to submit to all the directories.
Or want to. Or
care, right? If they're getting listeners where they're publishing where they are today on their website or whatever, that they're happy with that.
But if you be honest, my feeling personally is you shouldn't have to submit to any directory. It should be the directory's problem. And we have a mechanism in place that every directory, you can start a directory today, and every podcast that publishes, you will automatically be told about it, and you can add it to your own index, whatever you want to do, through Podping. If anyone wants to see what that is, podping.watch. You can see podcasts updating in real time. It's unbelievably cool to watch. It's like, it's the whole concept is backwards now. It's only to protect themselves. So, the concept is we're big, we're bad, we own the app on the phone. You can use another one, but trust us. And for many people who are in the Apple ecosystem, that may be completely fine. They may love Apple's curation. They're cool with that. They're not interested in going outside the box. Experience and history tells me that when you tell people the really good stuff, the dangerous stuff is on the outside, they usually go find it. And often, like AOL, when they open up the web, they will just run out in droves to go get the good stuff, which is, porn. But okay, it's still.
Yeah, I mean,
Word
even if you
porn
go
is
back and you think about the early days of the podcasting medium, the motivation for Apple to get into supporting podcasting, and same with Microsoft when I was working on Zune, was to sell devices and to get a subscription platform grown around music, right? So you think about where we started with this medium and what's been happening over the last couple of years. Amazon's gotten involved, Spotify's gotten involved. These big tech platforms, and now Facebook, the reasons those companies are getting involved has evolved, right? It's not so much to sell devices anymore. It's to build an advertising business, or it's a motivation around building subscriptions to the music streaming platforms for Spotify. That's the motivation now. So as we think about the evolution of podcasting, what does that mean, right? That means that the big entities are going to push us down this path of commercialization, and which is antithetical to the origins of podcasting, Adam. I mean, if we go back and we think about the early days, it wasn't about advertising. So
no, it was about screwing the man.
Right.
Well, so I don't know. I'm still doing that. I don't understand what, because there's two new there's one existing podcast app, which is Apple, which has become much less friendly. A lot of things broke with the Apple ecosystem, well documented. Right. So there's another app which you used to just listen to music, and now they're trying desperately to move people over to podcasting. When you say, what are we going to do about it? Fuck them. Who gives a flying fuck? I don't care. I really don't. It's so uninteresting because it's just fear. It's fear that is unwarranted. These people have no power at all, zero power. What they're trying to do is they're trying to own podcasting.
Right.
And
they're trying to take it back.
Own podcasting. And they'll do exactly what they did before, like Google. They'll break it and throw it all away. Because
or they'll go out and say that
own it. And people are not interested in the interruptive advertising model anymore. If they don't see this, then they are just frolicking around and doing just dilly-dallying just for the hell of it. Spotify has an honest-to-God vision. By the way, I don't think they said they had $3.8 billion to invest in podcasting and acquisitions. I think they said they had $3.8 billion to invest and do acquisitions. Well, I'm not so sure that's going to work. People do not get their entire audio experience from one app. They don't get their office experience from one app. Yeah, you may be forced into it at your actual office, but people use Gmail and maybe Google Docs, but they might share on their pictures exclusively on Instagram. But it's all over the place. There's reasons. The competition is good. The idea, the hubris of these companies that think, oh, no, we can deliver it all to them is a short-sighted thing. It's not going to work. I guarantee you it is not going to work. Spotify has yet to really make any money, and now the comedy guys are saying, screw you. And they have a flawed business model. The business model they have is where the product they sell, the price can be raised at any given moment. They have no control over it. It's a horrible business model. And so now they're trying to do it with some free audio. I don't know what they're doing, if they're putting ads in front of podcasts that have just been put up there. I have no idea.
I tried to buy some and I couldn't.
It's not interesting to the listener. Right. I do not believe it is very successful. I really don't. We don't have any true numbers. They're just telling us, it's like whatever.
Right. Yep.
But and podcasting is not, the top 1,000 shows. It's millions of feeds, millions of things out there that have different value and are consumed through different apps for different reasons. Yep. Spotify doesn't have the kind of sound processing that Cast-O-Matic has. Spotify misses many of the features that Overcast has. Now it's gotten down to we're competing on the right stuff here. We're competing on features, not because they got a big swinging dick and it's Spotify, but really I feel like you guys are pussies about it, and you need to be stronger. You put development cycles into bullshit stuff, in my opinion, with Facebook, which to me is like, okay, but then don't tell me that we're not doing enough for podcasting 2.0 because you made a choice.
Well,
and by the way, I know why. I understand why. But let's just be honest about it. There's work to be done. People make choices. Everybody makes choices.
And it's interesting. Let's just talk about Facebook for a second. So when Facebook came to us, we have a best practices document. I don't want to build an API to Facebook because guess what? They change it. It breaks it. It's more dev time. I don't want that. I said, please let the podcaster just do their own thing. If they want to be on, let them submit, let them add their show. Don't involve me to send you someone over to your interface where they're just going to log in and authorize it to be on their page anyway. Don't do that. I told them not to do that. And they largely did what we suggested in letting them have a direct relationship with the podcaster. So I don't have to have an interface like I had to have with Spotify where the terms of service pops up and they agree to it and then we send a signal over and they send a signal back. It was all bullshit. They should have done it just like everyone else did. Make it like Apple, make it like Facebook, make it like everyone else has taken in feeds, have a manual submission page. And luckily they did. That's what they did. So I think
I thought that we were supposed to be making it easier for the podcaster to get their distribution built, right?
Okay. Rob. I don't need to build that. I don't need
I know you don't need to. I agree with you.
And I can tell a podcaster, click this link. This will take you there. I don't need to build that. Why do I want Facebook's not giving me no money. So
well, then why didn't we do that with Spotify?
Well, we should have. So, but in the long run, the podcaster is going to tell us where they want to be, and we're going to try to make it accessible for them to be there. But to Adam's point, we try to tell them what to do. I got a company I'm dealing with right now. I'm telling them the same thing I told Facebook. And they say, "Oh, we want to go the API route," and I'm like, "Okay, I'll get to you sometime next year."
Well, Todd, we're both podcast consultants to these big platforms, and we've been that way for years, right?
Well,
but
yeah,
they
I
don't always listen.
I know another consultation team.
There you go. It's all your fault. All of this, you were the consultants. You were the
We're the ones that are causing all these
problems.
Your
fault. Your fault. You two. No one else. You two and the Slack channel you came in on.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I bet you if the Adam Curry and John C. DeVore consultation team was listened to too, there'd have been millions of dollars. Then you're
never
covered.
Take you as a client. No, you can't work with you as a client, Todd. Yeah, not workable.
Right.
But we try to tell these folks, and it's again it's decisions by committee. You don't have a conversation with one people. You have a conversation with 25, and it's like
team.
So, but what I'm saying is, if your customers need to get on Facebook, they can get on Facebook.
Right.
So Rob said something very interesting. Isn't our job to help people get distribution? I think that may have been your job for a while in the old system where you have to submit to everybody. I think that's kind of over. And
but there's so much confusion out there, Adam, about getting your show out.
I'm sorry?
There's so much confusion about how to get your show distributed. Everybody wants to be on all the listening platforms. I mean, unless you're doing an exclusive deal with
I can't tell
one
you
platform.
Here's part of the problem. And I'm holding up a mouse for those of you that are listening. We have podcasters today that don't know what the right click button is or this little scroll wheel. They don't know. So when they say to my support team, how do I get on this platform? We send them to a page. It talks about how you go and submit your show to all these different locations. And we have to have this ongoing renewed conversations in public forums. Everyone thinks podcasting is still a push technology and not a pull. So that's a reoccurring once a week thing we have to explain to people. But I think what it is you have content creators now that just want to create content. and they don't want to do
Just want everything else automated.
Everything else automated. So you and I, we grew up where that wasn't the case. We had to do a little work. We had to do 15 minutes worth of work, submit to Apple and to whoever else we wanted to be in. 15
That's not
minutes
who we're
of
dealing
work.
with anymore.
It's not the customers that I have to deal with on a daily basis right now.
Right.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. We'll also add that I think the biggest service hosting companies have done to the podcasting world is the educational part. And that's what you spend by far your most resources on, your most headaches, and you probably also get your most sales from that route if you're doing it well as well. So
content marketing, that's what it is. Yeah.
Well, where we're at now is I'm just going to make some I'm going to presumptions.
Mm-hmm.
I presume that Blueberry and Libsyn would love to be acquired by a big company who wants to do something in podcasting. And I'm just going to presume that as always in the back of everybody's mind, because I've run companies and it's the way it was for me. So when the opportunity comes along and integrate with us, it's like, oh, I got a semi because, and I understand. I really do. I think they're charlatans, assholes, crooks. They don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about podcasting. I thought the two women from the team were completely disingenuous, underinformed, have no idea what they're talking about. They're very good at Facebook stuff. Absolutely. They know what they want, but I don't think that they had really done much research into podcasting and what it is, where it's going, what has happened historically. And what I see is there is a growing group of people who are working with the industry, those who want to, and I think that is a long-term, much better relationship than spending cycles on Silicon Valley, because they really don't care, and they will do anything to their benefit, and they will kill you if now it could kill you and make you a multimillionaire. That's possible. So so I'm not blaming anybody or anything, but I think that's what's happening. And there are a couple of hosting companies who are not historically, don't have the same history, who come from a different perspective, may have different legacy, and they're focusing a bit more on what they can do with podcasting 2.0. In my mind, having run large companies, public company, you get big companies involved in your company, it slows the shit down. It just it's like molasses getting everything.
And we're exposed to that all the time when we have a client that comes in that's part of a Fortune 1000 or whatever like that. It's not let's launch a show in 2 weeks. It's we're going to launch a show in 6 months, and there's going to be 30 people that are in the decision chain and legal and everything else. So yeah, I get it.
Well, I think there's also this level of complexity that develops over time too, and as your staff grows and as the organization gets larger, it becomes more wieldy to manage and to fund and to create that cutting edge innovation. I think every company struggles with that,
but
especially.
At this point, a lot of it is
size,
not
right?
creating; it's implementing. There's implementations to be done. There's just implementations to be done. And I don't think the user problem is ever going to go away, and I understand. But in fact, we are saying the same thing. People will now need to have transcripts or closed captions or whatever you want to call it. It is kind of the same thing. Right. Make it easy for them.
Yep.
Right now, I jumped through a lot of hoops to publish a fully 2.0 compliant feed. I'm blessed that CurioCaster has an RSS generator built into it, so I was able to do it that way. But I'm still, I have a whole different way of doing my chapters, and I have to get the JSON file. I mean, these are all things that, and I know because this is what it was 18 years ago. It's going to get better, and some people are going to do it, and some people won't. So I think that may be as beneficial, maybe a little more, to it gives you a reason to talk to all your customers again, for sure. Hey, we got something new here.
Now, and to be fair, I told you before, and I'm sure we had this in the Mastodon server for the podcast 2.0 stuff. I said, I have to build for the 99%. And I think you understand that. So I have to look at what is going to be the biggest bang for the buck for my customers, what's going to give them the most value. I got to give value for value because, you know, they're paying me for value. So we are not, and I think probably Rob can speak maybe for Libsyn too. We definitely looked through that stack and said value, 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 value. Okay, let's put him in the dev cycle, get him in. I'd love to have it all tomorrow. If I could have it all tomorrow, I would click my finger and I'd have it all tomorrow. But you know how it goes when you're, you know, everything. Oh, you're God, you're the CEO. Well, it don't work that way. You know, there's a negotiation goes on with the dev team, with the board, and everything else. But I understand the desire to expand and make it easier for the space.
How do I get on your board?
Well, that's an interesting concept.
On your board, Todd. Let me talk to some fellow board members.
Oh, that's an interesting concept. Maybe we'll have to talk after the show.
Happy to. I'd love to be on your board. I'd love to help
Yeah.
help advise you with the board on which direction I think you might want to go.
So, and I think from that perspective, you know, and also not making excuses. No, I am. Part of our stuff was we were in a complete rebuild. And I'm finishing up 2 years of complete rebuild of the entire platform. So next year, we're going to get into that. Well, it's about 50 pages of stuff, literally, that we want to do.
Backlogged projects.
Yeah, the backlog. Right? Yeah.
Right.
And there's all the Podcast 2.0 stuff is in that backlog.
You know, again, everyone has to make decisions.
Sure.
And you're making the ones clearly that you think are best for you and for your customers and for your people at Blueberry. I'm just saying that I guess it's kind of it's chicken shit of me to do, but if I was running Blueberry, here's what I'd do. That's what I'm saying. And of course, I don't have all the details, but I do see other companies being able to implement some of this stuff. It's slow everywhere. That is completely understood. Yeah. But I'll come on your show in 5 years from now and say the same thing and be just as understanding.
And hopefully by 5 years from now, we'll be way beyond this and all that will be implemented. You know, that's the end goal.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean,
but you know, and actually not. I hope it's not 5 years. I hope in 18 months we're much farther along.
Well, podcasting
that's a
has
great
really.
question. What is
I'm sorry, Rob?
space going to look like in 5 years? You know.
Well, podcasting
it's going to be
has
much
really
different?
become an important part of the media mix, and no one can deny the numbers, and that's global. And it's, I mean, there's just too many success stories from so many different angles, whether it's just people achieving success for their own work and for their own personal pocketbook, or achieving success by moving political thought. I mean, there's so many things that podcasting is instrumental in, and I truly believe it all boils down to no one has figured out how to annihilate something they don't like. You know, it is, but in a weird way, it is truly, you know, the last bastion of free speech on the internet. Now, that's not really true, but true. Because you're actually hearing speech, you know, you're hearing it, it hits a little bit closer to home. And, you know, even the most rabid of the mainstream reporting, like, you know, will say, oh, you know, Apple took Alex Jones off, just to use an easy example, but he's still out there. His podcasts are still there, you know, and yeah, that's true. That's kind of the idea that it should be out there. Look, you know, if you got defamation lawsuits, it doesn't matter if someone's on Apple or not, you know, that's just clear cut law. This incessant need to want to get rid of things that people find offensive is in itself offensive and stupid and a waste of time. And it all it's done is given podcasting, it's the place. You know, I would hope 5 years from now we're looking at a more efficient way of actual media file distribution, so that we can be doing a lot more richer media. And, you know, I'm talking video, all this other stuff. I think that's, I think we'll come up with the right hooks for that, along with the obvious interaction, the big one being now the cross-app comments. And that is, you know, it's kind of working. it's like 70% there, so I can post a comment in one app, and then you can see and respond to that comment in a completely different app. This is pretty cool.
That's cool.
But there's still a lot of moving pieces in there, because who owns the ultimate root comment? Who owns it? Decentralized, which is the cool thing about it. But somewhere someone has to have a piece of something to start it all up. So there's freedom always requires an extra annoying step.
And a server and databases.
Yeah, but also, but obfuscating that obvious step that you have to take for complete freedom, meaning that someone isn't making it easier for you, who at the same time could turn off that feature for you.
That's right.
It's always going to require an extra step.
Yeah.
And we need to be educating our children, our sons, our brothers, our nephews, our nieces, our daughters, obviously. We need to be educating everybody about how things really work and what you can really do with them. And if you want to be effective at communicating or collaborating, what are the best ways and places to do that? It wouldn't kill people to learn a little bit more.
And, I think to your point, we're, I've said the same thing you just said, that podcasting is the last bastion of free speech. And I think that what really that means is that you're not
owned. Is that going to remain like that, Todd?
Well, I think it will. I don't see how it can be usurped. I just don't see how someone can come in and, they can get some more market share. They can buy more exclusive shows, and they can silo people. But they're not siloing me. They're not going to silo Adam. That's not going to happen. So as long as I have my domain name, my show will exist. And even if my domain name's taken away, it can be recreated under another mantra or another brand. So I think that this is, that's the origin story of this. Why did we start podcasting? Because we're tired of excuse my French, the fucking gatekeepers. The gatekeepers controlled everything. We couldn't get on platforms unless we signed a contract. So what do we have to sign a contract to do podcasts? No. Anyone can create a podcast.
You do if you want to be on Apple or Spotify.
Well, it's true. But that's the price.
You just don't get anything for it.
Right. That's right. You don't get nothing for it. You're right. But
so digital also enabled it to be possible.
That's what they want to do, then that's their problem, not mine.
That's right.
So, Adam, I wanted to ask you, you've been on a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, and what do you think that the podcast space should take away from what we've seen happen there with him, with Spotify? Do you think he's lost huge numbers of audience by doing that deal?
I don't know. I don't think it matters. I don't think he cares.
I think he got paid.
Well, I don't. It's not as simple as that. Joe lives in the model you're talking about. Joe lives in he's Hollywood. He lives in the model of, I got 10 million people. I need 11 million. I need 20 million, because that equals the amount of money I can get for it. Now that's not really Joe. I know Joe is a very different kind of guy. He does have Hollywood people around him, real, agents, managers, financial guy, all this stuff. So he doesn't have to worry about that. Their job is to function in that system. So this was an old Hollywood deal. There won't be many of these types of deals, as witness. How many? There's a handful. Sure, but look at how many podcasts there are, and then look at how many have been taken exclusive. I think that he's made it. So the takeaway is, will you be, and your audience, I would say more importantly, be strong enough to to make the deal. So there's obviously things that Joe maybe was even self-centering about in the beginning, just to be careful, just to get through the honeymoon period of the deal.
Right.
Even though his deal is directly with the CEO, and the CEO has given him man-to-man type assurances, and I think that he's kept his word. But it was more a statement by Spotify. I doubt that everyone else has the same free reign. There is a little misconception, though, about the censorship of the Joe Rogan show. In the beginning, the part of the deal, as I understood it, is he could keep 100 episodes for himself to post anywhere, keep on YouTube, do whatever he wanted. And some of them were the most, by coincidence, but also happenstance, the most controversial people, including one of mine. One of my episodes is not on Spotify. But that was his right to keep those, and I think he wanted to keep some evergreen. There was a few that he had fallen out with these people, or they had lied to him, and I think he decided to just get rid of those episodes altogether because he didn't like what those people had done or said. So the whole point of the way I see it, coming from the Ron Bloom school of company and podcasting building, is let's make a big splash, let's wave some cash. Everyone will sign up. Everybody will kind of ignore that we're just going to run ads on your shit and never give you any money. And we'll build our company that way. And then we'll cherry pick whatever we want out of it. And then we keep capturing. We go on and on and on and on.
Well, Adam, that's why Spotify said that they had $3.5 billion to acquire, right? Is to get everybody spun up, right?
Well, it's the same thing. It's part of the same messaging, which, okay, that's great, but the core is the music business, and the music business is not profitable, and I don't think it really can be very profitable. So that's why they want to have more people paying subscription fees. I think they too, probably the advertising gambit, they may not see that working out so well. I know they've had problems.
It's flat. It's flat. It's not growing at all, Dave. The advertising side, the free side, isn't growing at all. It's a subscription side that's growing for them. It's
growing. Well. Then good. Then they should do that. I mean, that's perfectly fine. And if people want to be exclusive to Spotify, that's fine. But it's not like a binary choice. It's not. It doesn't really matter. The people who want to listen to my programming, they will find me.
Right.
And I'll make it as easy as possible for them. But that may mean that you can't use the Spotify app. Oh, horrors.
Right.
You may say it's not worth it to me. Your show, the content, what you do is not worth me switching to an app to listen just to your show. Okay. Then that's pretty low rating.
So
right.
I'm going to talk about one more thing, and then we got to go. So we'll see how much smoke comes out of Adam's ears here. So I had brought up in some shows ago, I had talked about, we'd had a guest on here that was moving directly to Spotify. He was going to go off other platforms because he's convinced that Spotify is going to take care of him as independent content creator. Well, you and I, all of us know how that's going to end. He ain't going to get nothing from Spotify. They don't care. They're not going to pay podcasters. They won't. So here's the concept. And I know this falls outside of the value for value, but just think about this from the way the ecosphere is kind of working now. What if you could get 50,000 podcasters to say, bye-bye, Spotify. You can't have our content no more. Shut off the feed. They can't have access to it. And then, as a collective, you go back and do that Hollywood deal and say, you want the 50,000 shows? Pay us.
I'll give you an analog to that, because this is something that's popped up recently. This is my personal answer to what you're saying, the way I feel about it. There's a lot of talk about NFTs, and we have a community and assets in the community, particularly album art and sound clips and jingles and novelty songs.
Yep.
And we have so many assets.
Yeah.
That it is almost an NFT heaven.
Right.
And people keep telling us, you need to do this. I'm going to set it up for blah, 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 all these different things. And our answer remains, no. We just want people to pay us for the work we do, not for these derivative pieces. I mean, if we wanted to make money, then there's easier ways of making money without, actually kind of throwing your reputation a little bit up for grabs, because it doesn't feel right. So if the ultimate goal for everyone who gets into podcasting is to make a living out of it, stop.
Well, that's true.
You probably won't.
That's right.
I've been doing this for over 40 years. Not podcasting, but broadcasting. It's not for everybody. It's the same thing when blogs started and Andrew Sullivan made $1 million and everyone's like, where's my blog money?
Mm-hmm.
It's just not going to happen. Find the value in something else. Find the value in the connections you make, the people that will respond and have friendships, these types of things. That's the reward. We've got to look at this from, and I'm a capitalist, and but the world is changing very rapidly around us, and we're going to wake up, and there's going to be a lot of things missing. A lot of products are going to be missing, and we're like, maybe diapers will be one. It would be prime, and we're going to have to learn how to wash cloth diapers again. The world is, there's some pieces of it are crumbling. And the idea that it's all just about the money, I don't even know if you want dollars at this point. You got to question everything. I don't know if I want to get paid in dollars. So, let's make sure that we always remember podcasting is not just a money-making scheme. Podcasting is a communications mechanism that you can do almost anything you want with, and there's a lot of rails that have been put in place that say attach here and slide down, and that's what it is. It's a slide down full of disappointment, because the focus is on growing the audience.
Yep.
The focus, I think, should be on maybe one day, when I'm 65, 70, we should start doing the seminars or something. I don't know. I'm too busy working right now.
And I think we, Rob and I, and you fully get that. I think we do, because we see the numbers. I remember in the early days when I was writing guys a check for $7. It costed me more to process a check than it was the value of the money I was sending. And so it was, some of that is still going on today, amazingly.
Well,
it's the only difference.
You remember the story I told you about the Curry and the Keeper show, our first show? So I did the numbers. We made $17 our first show in pure Bitcoin payments.
Oh, yeah.
And while I think that's actually probably more than a lot of podcasts get who start off right out of the gate with advertising, because they probably get zero because you have zero listeners. It was so not about the $17.
That's right.
It was so about the little messages they send and the feedback and like, hey, we're going to pop open a wine and listen to the next show. That's what it was about. It doesn't all just have to be about growing the show, making the money.
Yeah.
And by the way, to round that out, Joe Rogan has an incredible amount of energy, because I know he also does gigs around the country on weekends, and he's got his UFC stuff that he does. But to do 4 interviews a week and to actually produce 4 interesting guests a week, it's real work. I remember I went out there, we were yapping for 3 hours, we were smoking weed, we were drinking whiskey, and then he had a whole nother 3-hour interview to do. I'm like, holy crap. So,
it's a lot of drinking.
You're in the tank, and he's got to do the 3 hours.
and then you got to be Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
An uber generalist, a Renaissance man, knows a little bit about everything. Is not afraid to say he doesn't know or is wrong, it is the modern day Tonight Show. And, just like everything else, the pendulum swung the other way. Instead of the 2 minutes and 45 seconds, including 20 seconds of your clip of your movie, now it's 4 hours. Let's really talk about your book. So to me, these things are the success of podcasting. Joe Rogan, maybe in a long way to answer your question, Rob, the success of Joe Rogan is not the money. The success of Joe Rogan is that there are millions of people who now are sitting down and listening to 2 people have a conversation about something that of interest. And these people are interesting, and they have interesting things to say in general. Now, a lot of his stuff, certainly earlier stuff was kind of wacky dude stuff, but he's really found a format that is so enriching to the world. He had Dr. Peter McCullough on his most recent show, and I mean, I know exactly what McCullough is saying. The things, Joe Rogan is mainstream now. Joe Rogan had mainstream media that went counter to the entire narrative.
Right.
And is out there. And that makes me super happy. No one has to win or lose, but it's out there, and and I think it's more important than just look at the TV numbers. Look at the cable news numbers. It's laughable. No one's watching that shit. The problem is all these podcasters, right-wing podcasters, who are playing clips of the left-wing media and bitching about it. That's how people even know what they're saying. We could end a lot of these problems just by stop doing that.
Yeah.
Do you think that Joe will renew a deal with Spotify? You think at the end of his contract, and do you think that he could build a bigger audience off of that platform?
Again, is a bigger audience going to mean $100 million? Probably not.
It could. I think it could. It could be maybe more than that.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if he wants to go and find out. I don't know if he wants to deal with it. I don't think he does. I don't think he wants to be independent and have to think about it. He still
has his RSS feed on Libsyn active still.
Yeah, but I think that it would not work out for Joe to come back at this time, because he would for sure no longer be on Spotify, and for sure not be on Apple, and maybe a couple others. So the hit would be pretty big, I think. And the way it works in platforming land is they go after your advertisers. So
right.
Now the advertisers aren't Joe's advertisers; they're Spotify's advertisers.
Right.
So he shifted that problem. Will he come back to open podcasting? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I can listen to him on Spotify if I choose to. Mm-hmm. By the way, I still get ads even though I pay for it. That's kind of interesting. I don't know how that deal works. It's quite annoying. I mean, literally the video stops and the audio keeps playing, and then the video comes back. It's really weird.
Well, it was my what I had heard anyway is that deal was done not about advertising. So Joe has all the advertising rights.
No.
No.
He licensed the show. The exclusive advertising is all Spotify.
Okay. Oh, it is.
He can't sell any ads. No, I'm 99.9% sure.
Do you think he gets any points on that?
No, he straight up.
He straight up got the check.
Straight up license. Here's your money. Give us X amount of episodes. He has to deliver episodes.
Right.
It's not per week, but he has to deliver episodes per year or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Makes sense. Well,
I mean, really, you're right, though. It's bullshit. If I go on his show, I should get paid.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm not going on anymore, Joe.
So, Adam, how big of a check would it take for you to go to Spotify exclusive? I know the answer already. I just had to throw it out there.
I've thought about it. There's been some things that have popped up in the past from some payment platforms, and but in the case of No Agenda, there is no show if we take advertising and get bought out by someone, because it's just no show. That's not the show works because we don't have it. And at this point in my life, where I am today, and I've discussed this with Tina. We've talked about this, certainly when it came up for Joe. I said, I don't think I could live with myself anymore. So even, we're doing fine. I've had a great successes in my life. I've had helicopters and castles, and they may come again, they may not, but I have a great life and everything's fine. And I don't have to worry about the next check. I can wait for 6 months before I have to worry. So I don't think I would do it. It sounds really highfalutin, but I'm 57. What would I spend it on? It would I've been very rich. It brings a lot of hassle. You need people. You got to have managers, people around you, people to manage the people, and it's annoying. But that said, there's always room for more money, of course.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say
for years and years, there's been a lot of speculation about Howard Stern becoming a podcaster, but it just feels like now that's not even
Howard's tired
worth even talking about too much anymore, but it is a curious kind of feeling of a shift that's happening, especially with Sirius XM getting into podcasting more. It's almost like people are just listening to audio now. It really doesn't matter how it's delivered to them.
Yeah, I think it's blurred. I know that there are several car audio companies who do OEM type stuff for high-end cars. I know that they're all working on integrating specifically podcasting 2.0, a couple of them. But it's hard for me because I really enjoy Sirius XM for what it does for me, which is really to be able to listen to the stupid cable news casts in my car when I'm driving, because it's like that's a good way for me to monitor what's going on, because I have it on all the time anyway, just because that's what I do. But by the same token, I really enjoy 94.3 The Rock, Kerrville, Texas. The Rock of Texas. These guys are still doing the old school morning show with the bells and playing AC/DC. I really love that kind of hyper localized radio. But you're right. I mean, it's blurred all over the map, and people have no affiliation with networks. A network used to stand for a certain type of quality, or that's the evening you only watch NBC, must watch TV, that kind of stuff. I just see smaller media islands. This is what I've been predicting for a long time. Call it a tribe, call it a cult, call it a community, whatever you want to call it. And
kind of like podcasting, right?
That's what it is. Well, podcasts are literally like that. Right. And you grow not by having more people, but by overlapping with these other tribes. So the No Agenda Rogan overlap. And it doesn't work in every industry, because you can't always go on someone else's show. Like, no one can come on our show because we don't do guests. But, Tom Woods, and then that kind of, those two started to combine. And then you get out of the blue, people like, you got to be on Jack Murphy's show. I don't know who Jack Murphy is. And then, and Jack Murphy sees people saying, hey, Curry's got to be on your show. And then all of a sudden we're talking on the show and we're having a good time. And now there's more expansion. That kind of stuff is interesting. So you want to grow your show, make sure you connect to another circle, another audience. And I think that's going to be the same for mainstream as well. They're living so in the past. They really, look at CNN. CNN is launching CNN Plus. Yeah. They've hired Chris Wallace. Why are they doing that? Just as a competitive play against Fox Nation? No, because cable's dead. It's dead. And John Malone is going to come in and he's going to kick everybody out of CNN. That's going to end. So Fox,
it's already been happening if you really look at it.
Yeah, well, true. Whenever they bring out the pedophilia thing, that means everyone could be fired. It's like, oh, there's pedophilia there. People may have to go, step back to spend more time with their families. This happened. It's a horrible thing. And by the way, especially in America, I'm always amazed. And pedophilia aside, obviously, but let's just look at Cuomo's brother and many the whole 2016 election cycle in the United States in particular. We don't care about your policies. We don't care about the wars. But if you stick your dick in the wrong place, you're out of here. You are out of here, man. You're out of here. And like, what are we doing? What is important to us?
Yeah.
Being said. So Adam, not that everyone already doesn't know, and if you don't know and listen to this show, then you haven't been listening. So where can they find you? Matter of fact, where is Curry and the Keeper at?
CurryandTheKeeper.com.
Curry, is it the Curry and?
No, this is, I made such a damn rookie mistake. So it's Curry and the Keeper. You write it all full out. And of course, we're still waiting for Value for Value website to be built, Value for Value art. We're very basic. But that's how I love building it. But in the RSS feed, I titled it Curry & the Keeper. And that doesn't show up very well in search.
Yeah.
The ampersand throws off the search. So now Dave Jones is working on how to accept. If you do curry and just keeper, it works perfectly. But if you do curry ampersand, rookie mistake on my part, of course. But yeah, curry and the keeper. In fact, we're about to do a new show right after we hang up. That'll be our second episode. And I would say no agenda show. You can just search anywhere for that. And above all, podcastindex.org. But if you really want to hang out a little bit and see what's going on, podcastindex.social is, and anyone can join. Anyone can become a developer. You can just be someone lurking in the background, giving your opinions. It's all appreciated and all welcome.
And I think it's important to say is there's a lot of people in podcastindex.social that are just, they put in a comment here and there, but there are a lot of lurkers.
Yeah, like you.
Yeah,
like
me,
you
like
and,
me.
like
Yeah,
you and Rob.
that's
You
right.
come by, you fucking spray us with an Uzi. Like, that'll never work. All
I
right?
never say that.
And
I
then
never-
run, right? Yeah.
and exit stage right.
Hey, both of you, thank you so much for being so open and frank. I think this is one of the best talks we've had about this. Certainly, the issues that podcasting has had, that it currently has, where we are moving forward. Obviously, you're both incredibly appreciated, and you are pillars of the industry. I'm just kicking against you.
No, not at all.
That
No,
hasn't
not at
changed in
all.
20
No.
years, gentlemen.
No, here's what it is, Adam. If I had a magic wand,
I know that.
Yeah,
Oh, Todd, watch out.
he's the one
if
that
I had
started
that
all
one.
this, Todd.
Who?
Adam.
Yeah, I know. Of
I
course.
know. So he's the one to blame. No.
Hey, I've said it.
Totally all my fault.
I've said it 1,000 times. If I had not sat down and listened to Adam and Dave
Right.
talking about this space, I would not be right here right now. So him, and Dave are, at least for me, responsible for why I'm here. So Adam knows that. Told him many times.
We're still here, and we're still talking to each
Yes,
other.
we are.
Right.
Beautiful.
It's true.
I even talk to Cridlin these days. It's a crazy world. Like,
Yeah, it is. So
we found middle ground.
So cool. So it's Adam at Curry.com. I'm going to tell everybody, hey, don't fill his inboxes. If it's trash, he'll ignore you. But
I ignore nothing. I may not respond.
that's right.
Right.
But I'm Todd at Blueberry.com, at Geek News on Twitter. Rob?
And I'm on Twitter as well, at Rob Greenlee. And you can send me an email if you want, robg@libsyn.com. Happy to hear from you. And it's always great to get feedback from everybody that's checking this show out.
And if you have comments on today's show, definitely drop us a note. We want to hear from you. If you've got any secrets, drop us a note as well, because we always love to get scuttlebutt and secrets to talk about on the show. But again, Adam, thanks for coming on and spending time with us. We're over. Sorry for we've been over. I know you've got, like you said, you got another show to do, so we'll let you go.
That's the beauty, man. We can start whenever we want. We don't have to hit the top of the hour. We can start a little late.
That's true. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on the New Show.
All right,
Take
guys.
care.
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Wow.
Yeah.